Hello to all Cinemaster lovers. Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. The movie Now You See Me begins with four magicians. We start with Daniel, whose talent is to exploit your attention and focus, deceiving you with magic tricks, and Merritt, who controls people's minds through hypnosis. Then we meet Jack, who comes to showcase one of his tricks in New York City, making bets with people and laughing at them. Finally, there's Henley, a stage performer skilled in magical tricks who we see attempt a trick where she descends into a glass water tank, fails, and is attacked by predatory fish. She eventually emerges to a cheering crowd and hands out invitation cards for a venue in New York City. Daniel is happy to see Henley, as she was his old assistant. Merritt is present too, and Jack follows. They all admire Daniel, who opens the door to a room where they are surprised to find no one inside, but instead, holographic plans from an unknown person who is helping them rise to fame. A year later, we see the four magicians on stage in Las Vegas, forming a group called the Four Horsemen, funded by a man named Arthur. They perform a magical trick, which is a bank heist in France. They ask the audience for a volunteer and choose a Frenchman named Etienne. They talk about the bank he works with and begin performing their trick. Jack gives him a teleportation helmet, and Daniel has him pick a card and write his name and signature on it. At this point, Henley demonstrates a time travel machine. Merritt explains that it's 11:50 p.m. in Las Vegas, while it's 5:58 a.m. in France, meaning the bank will open in 10 minutes. Etienne enters the vault in Paris, amazed by the money there. Daniel communicates with him, showing him over 3 million euros, and instructs him to throw in a ticket from the Four Horsemen, along with the card. Daniel tells him to press a button on the helmet, and the money begins to be sucked up by the air ducts and the transporter. A short time later, the bank officials arrive, shocked to find nothing but the ticket and card from the Four Horsemen. Meanwhile, the money is transported to the stage and distributed to the audience. The FBI director Dylan is called to take on the bank robbery case, along with Alma from Interpol. They begin interrogating Etienne, who claims he was hypnotized by the Four Horsemen. When he says all shit, which seems like a trigger, he turns into a musician, showing they had programmed his mind to react to that phrase. The Four Horsemen are arrested and investigated, but Daniel tells Dylan that they have no evidence to prove the robbery. Dylan becomes angry and tries to hit Daniel but is surprised to find his hand handcuffed. Daniel performs a magic trick, placing the key in a cola can, and the police are forced to release them, as magic is the only evidence. Dylan is furious that the police let them go, but a police officer tells him about a former magician named Thaddeus, who can expose all magicians' tricks. They visit Thaddeus, who takes them to the theater and explains the trick. Dylan wears the helmet and gets on the machine, where they discover a hidden vault beneath the stage. They manage to access it through a secret door inside the machine, which was just a trick. Thaddeus confirms that the French bank robbery occurred weeks ago, performed by the Four Horsemen. They fooled the audience into thinking the heist happened during the stage show. Thaddeus further explains how the Four Horsemen tracked Etienne's movements before choosing him randomly from the audience. They hypnotized him before the show and replaced the real money with counterfeit bills, which they disposed of through a playing card that burned all the money without leaving any ash or smoke. Thaddeus warns Dylan that the Four Horsemen are planning another strong magical trick in New Orleans, but Dylan begs Thaddeus for help in capturing them. Thaddeus refuses, and then Thaddeus is approached by Tristler, who tries to bribe him to stay away from the Four Horsemen. But Thaddeus refuses, warning that Dylan may be their next target and they will destroy him. Before the second performance, Thaddeus arrives, claiming he is there to expose their secrets. However, the Four Horsemen mock him and continue. As they perform a rabbit disappearance trick, they intentionally reveal the secret to the audience. Henley then reveals how the trick works by changing the rabbit into a magician's hat. Daniel then creates a large soap bubble, and Henley enters it, floating over the audience. Tristler is called to the stage, and they begin distributing the audience's bank account details. The audience celebrates as money transfers into their bank accounts, with proof sent to their phones. Tristler becomes furious and tries to attack them but finds himself chained to the stage. Dylan attempts to capture the Four Horsemen but fails as they escape with the help of the audience. The police chase them until they perform another trick to escape. Alma then points a gun at Daniel but hesitates and doesn't shoot. Taking advantage of the situation, the Four Horsemen escape, and Tristler meets with Thaddeus, offering to help him in exposing the Four Horsemen's trickery. This is after he lost $140 million. Dylan discovers that he was being monitored by the Four Horsemen. They were watching all the messages and calls he made through his phone, which they had switched with a perfect replica. Daniel managed to swap the phone during the investigation period, and things were tense with the Four Horsemen before they carried out their final trick in New York City. They were scared of the unknown person who gave them instructions not to turn them over to the police after they finished what he wanted. Meanwhile, the police reached the scene and surrounded the entire building, but they managed to escape, leaving Jack behind to get rid of all the evidence that revealed they were working with the unknown person. Dylan and the officer with him managed to get inside, and Jack started fighting with them, using a magical trick to escape and steal a car from the street. A chase began between the police and Jack, broadcast live. Jack lost control of the car, which flipped, and Dylan tried to get out but couldn't. He managed to grab the evidence and escape before the car exploded. Meanwhile, the four horsemen posted a mourning message for their friend Jack and decided to continue their final trick in New York. Dylan and the officer learned through the evidence that the horsemen were trying to target a safe protected by the federal police in the city, stopping the truck transporting the safe. The new federal agent who took over the case suggested that they let the truck go because the horsemen were clearly watching it, and once it reached their location, they could arrest them. After the truck reached the designated spot, they saw Thaddeus, who was also watching the truck, and Dylan began to suspect he was the fifth enemy working with the horsemen. He suggested they open the safe to confirm their stupidity, and inside they found inflatable items. Once again, the horsemen managed to outsmart them, and they went to the location where the horsemen planned their final trick. After they were arrested, it turned out that they were just decoys. The horsemen had escaped from another location, and here Dylan shot at them, but it was just an illusion, a hologram of their figures. Money exploded and fell on the crowd again. Meanwhile, they managed to escape from the police after being tricked for the third time. The officer told Dylan that the money was counterfeit. Thaddeus went to open his car and was shocked to find real money inside. The police arrested him because he was part of the plan. After entering jail, Dylan met with him and explained how the horsemen moved the safe by covering its room with a large mirror. This made them think it was stolen, but it was in its place. While they were busy watching the truck, Jack went and stole all the money. They arranged for Jack's death by switching his car with an identical one and controlling it remotely, placing a decoy inside to make it seem like it was Jack. Dylan tells him that it's impossible for the horsemen to have planned all these operations and that there was a fifth person managing them. He suggests that Thaddeus is the fifth person, the mastermind behind all the plans carried out by the horsemen. Dylan was able to accuse Thaddeus of stealing the safe and kept him imprisoned forever. Then, Dylan met with the four horsemen and revealed that he was the unknown person supporting them. He was a member of the Great Sorcerer's Eye organization, and the horsemen joined him in the organization. Dylan then went to the public and saw them reading an article in the newspaper about the magician who drowned while performing a magic trick and the family's situation after his death. Dylan told her that the magician who died was his father, and that he had founded the Four Horsemen to take revenge on everyone responsible for his father's death. Thaddeus had him imprisoned because he had wronged his father. The bank in Paris and the Chrysler Company refused to pay for his father's insurance after his death, and the company that made the safe, which his father had used, was the one that killed him because it was made of poor iron. Dylan had lived in poverty until he got a job with the Eye organization, and he planned all the events that took place. But he never planned the meeting with Alman, as he was hidden at the time. And that's the end of the film. Stay tuned for part 2. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to get a new story.